Hello and welcome to how pre-retirees in the Rockford area can potentially avoid going broke in retirement while keeping their nest egg secure. Did you know that an estimated 40% of all U.S. households are projected to run short of money in retirement? By watching this short presentation, you will learn the biggest mistake most retirees make and what you can do to easily avoid it. Now, I speak to pre-retirees every day, and many tell me they have these same concerns. Many that I speak to are afraid that they're going to end up like their parents or a coworker who just didn't plan well and ended up running out of money and maybe even had to go back to work after they retired. Some people tell me that I'm afraid I'm not doing the right things with my money and I'm just not sure if I'm even ready to retire. Still others tell me that they're not wanting to be rich, they just want to keep what they have and maintain their current lifestyle. If any of these sound like you are in the right place. So let's talk about the biggest mistake people make when preparing to retire. And in order to understand this mistake, you first need to understand the money cycle. Now, have you ever heard of the money cycle? Typically, the money cycle has two parts. Part one is called the accumulation or savings phase. This is when you're working and putting money away into your retirement account. The second phase is called the distribution or income phase. This is when you are retired and drawing an income from those savings that you've accumulated over the years. Now, this chart lists the sequence of returns for a typical 10-year period of time. And we're looking at a $100,000 portfolio with an average return of, say, 6% over that 10-year time frame. Now, and for the sake of simplicity, we're not going to put any money in or take any money out of the portfolio. Now, as you can see, we put the great returns here in the first 2 years of 30 and 20%. And in the last 2 years of the chart, we show some very bad returns. The account was down 20 and 30%. So by the end of the 10 years, your $100,000 has grown to 154,764. Okay, so now let's reverse the sequence or order of returns in the portfolio. We're going to give you the bad returns up front and the good returns at the end. What would you expect to be the results? Well, the end result is still the same. Your 100,000 grows to 154,764. The sequence or order of returns makes no difference during the accumulation phase. Remember, this is the accumulation phase, and in both cases, the sequence of returns had no impact. The portfolio grew to the exact same number. This is the same exact period with the same percentage returns. The only difference now is that we are in retirement. This is the distribution phase, and we are taking an annual income out of the account of $6,000 to live on. Still the same $100,000 and still the same average annual return of 6%. The first portfolio starts like before, with great years in the beginning, and then again with two bad years at the end. At the end of the 10 years, even after taking over $60,000 out in income, you're left with a portfolio value of $105,000. But let's change the sequence of returns and see what happens. So now the first 2 years of retirement, we're going to start off with two bad years in the markets. But those final 2 years are going to be great years again. So no problem, right? Everything should be the same. Well, unfortunately, that's dead wrong. Your portfolio has actually declined to about $39,000. That's roughly a two-thirds drop in value simply because of the sequence or order of returns. After you retire and start drawing income, the sequence of returns can make a dramatic, if not disastrous difference. You see the difference there between 105,000 and 38,898. So the years right before and right after you retire are like a retirement red zone. In this area, it's critical to protect a portion of the money you may need sooner rather than later. So to minimize that potential risk, we have added a new phase to the money cycle. It's called the preservation phase. This is the time period immediately before and after retirement when you are highly vulnerable to sequence of returns risk. This is designed to protect the money in your portfolio, especially a portion of the money that you will need sooner rather than later, and it protects it from extreme shocks and declines. We've developed a fairly simple way to implement this strategy, but it's an approach that most advisors simply do not use. It's called the bucket plan. It's easy to understand, simple to implement, and it can really help you secure your future. Let's get into it. The bucket plan is a three-bucket approach of segmenting your money based on needs and time horizon. Basically, we are dividing up the money according to what you need that money to do for you and when you're likely to need it. Let's start with bucket one, the now bucket. This bucket is typically money in the bank that's designated to cover expenses in the first year or two of retirement, such as things like cars, home repairs, and emergency fund. This bucket is protected from market fluctuations, but of course, the returns in bucket one will be minimal. It will probably not even keep pace with inflation. So we don't want to have more money than necessary in bucket one. But what bucket one buys us is zero risk and peace of mind. Next, we have bucket two, the soon bucket. This is our preservation bucket. This is the money that we may need to access sooner rather than later. So it should be invested for growth, but conservative growth. By choosing the conservative investments for this bucket, the average returns in bucket two should be higher than in bucket one. This growth helps offset rising costs of things like gas, groceries, and other daily living expenses. It gives you some protection from inflation on a portion of your money. Also, having some growth in bucket two allows you to draw a little more income as the years go on and things get more expensive. And by investing conservatively with a portion of your money, you minimize the risk of taking out money at a market low or sequence risk, as this account should not be exposed to extreme market fluctuations. This bucket helps solve the problem of the retirement red zone. It dramatically reduces sequence. Finally, we have bucket three, the later bucket for the last phase of retirement. This bucket is designed for long-term growth and legacy planning. Since we have protected a time horizon and secured some peace of mind with the first two buckets, we now have the confidence for bucket three to invest in higher growth opportunities and longer-term commitments. Also in bucket three, we talk about something called legacy planning. Most people think legacy planning is just for the kids, but that's a big mistake. Legacy planning is actually most important for the surviving spouse. Going from married to single tax brackets, the standard deduction is cut in half, marginal brackets shrink, and overall taxes go up dramatically. Added to which, losing one of the two Social Security payments and potential pension income is almost always reduced as well. So taxes go up and income goes down for a surviving spouse. Now, some of you might be thinking you've seen something like this before. The truth is that many financial advisors do something similar to the bucket plan, but many make a critical mistake. They leave out bucket two, the soon bucket. They divide up a portfolio into cash and long-term investments. They forget completely about protecting a portion of the money for income streams and creating a hedge against inflation. They leave a massive part of the portfolio fully exposed to market and interest rate risk. I call this the not quite plan because it ignores the extreme danger in the retirement red zone. In conclusion, the bucket plan is a way to holistically structure your savings to tackle today's market challenges while meeting your immediate short-term and long-term goals. It protects the money you may need sooner rather than later from sequence of returns risk. Basically, it provides peace of mind by allowing you to protect a time horizon and invest the rest with confidence that your needs are going to be met. It's a simple but powerful way of thinking and planning that is easy to understand and implement. So, what's the next step? Where do we go from here? As I explain that, I'm just quickly putting up a required disclaimer on the board for you to review. But let's talk about that next step. Typically, what we like to do is meet with someone for about a half an hour phone call. And on that call, my goal is to answer as many questions for you as I can on whatever topics are of most concern for you. A lot of times during that one phone call, we can uncover areas that could put you sometimes tens of thousands of dollars ahead or potentially help you avoid major pitfalls. There's no charge for this meeting and there's nothing to buy at this point. Does that sound like something that would be helpful to you? Well, then I'd like you to click on the button below and schedule your free 30-minute phone consultation. Once you do, we're going to reach out to you, either myself or my assistant, and confirm the date and time. And then we'll send you a what to bring sheet as well as a brief 2-minute survey to help us to get acquainted. So why don't you go ahead and click on that free 30-minute phone consultation button below today to schedule a date and a time that works best for you.